Hello and EFS_PhD show for today, the 30th of October, day before Halloween. Remember, you're good enough, you're strong enough, and gosh darn it, someone's got to win that money. And yesterday, a bunch of guys with 55s in their names. G Frank 55, Rod 73555, Zach 95555, CP 085555. Half of the 8 people that won had some 55s in there. Hopefully they're 55 years old or 70, whatever, 73. I know we have some silent generation dudes out here playing fantasy too. So, hey, welcome to you guys. I'm glad you're here listening to the show, watching the show, whatever it is. Love it, man. Great to have this community of dudes. Speaking of, you should join us in the Discord. The link's in the YouTube. Let me know if it's expired. Yeah, because we're late news and stuff could be important. We got Gerald Everett out. So a lot of that video yesterday for Sunday Night Football wasn't that valuable by the time Sunday Night Football came around. But I don't think we have a late news slate today. So let's just get on to it. You can follow me on Twitter for all the play-by-play of how things go with uniqueness and stuff, but I think a lot of you already do. So today I don't really have a lot of thoughts. It's not a slate where I didn't make any changes to SaberSim's suggestions. We don't really have any uncertainty about the slate, right? Is anybody even questionable? ASB is technically questionable. I think everybody expects him to play. If he doesn't play, obviously it's a whole different video and no need to prep it, right? You play the other wide receivers. You play a lot of them, right? You play a lot of the other wide receivers for Detroit. You play a lot of the tight ends. You up all of their projections by not quite the full amount of ASB, 21 points, but you have to sprinkle like 14 points among the other wide receivers. They're just going to be the targets, and they're like 2/3 as good. So that's what I do, just letting you know if ASB is out. But assuming he's in, we just jam him. I mean, 35% in flex, a lot more in captain, I would assume, 35% more in captain, so 70% ASB. I did allow both quarterbacks in captain. Sometimes I don't. But yeah, both quarterbacks are fine. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is probably fine. Did we get the other guy ruled out? Williams, right? No. Who's the backup? Yeah, no. Who's the backup running? Craig Reynolds is projected as the backup running back for Detroit, which tells me that their better guy who is taking away work from Gibbs is not there anymore. Maybe injured still. I don't remember the exact situation. But in any case, everybody's expecting a lot of work to go to Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a talented person. As a result, I am winding up with more than 50% Jahmyr Gibbs as well. None of this is news. So here's how are we going to win money? We're going to win money by restricting our geometric mean to less than 23. If you want to go to 100K, probably go to less than 21 on a slate like this, but it's 500K up top, so I'm going to let 23 just because, 8 dupes, 10 dupes, it's still $50,000, $60,000. That's fine with me. I'm not turning up my nose at $50,000, $60,000. That's a reasonable amount of money for, lineups in this region. So I've been aiming between 47,500 and 49,600 for this first build. I just don't see that much value today. I might even get sharper. Yeah. So I was able to get 4,800 lineups in that region. So I'll probably get even tighter by the time I get to the actual slate. I'm going to go 48.5 to 49.6. That's working pretty significantly in that gray zone where you get more than your expected number of dupes for independent lineups. So I'm not sure if I will be more restrictive. I might go to 22 or 21 for geometric mean eventually. But these are the choices for the slate. The slate is not about what's going to happen as much as the recent slates have been trying to predict usages. I don't see any. I pulled up. Thank you. People have suggested to use different things for target percents and yeah, usage percent. Join the Discord, make suggestions. I'll change what I'm using here. This does look like a nicer website, but I don't really have anything to do. Plus, it doesn't break it down into fantasy points, so I probably will eventually go to Fantasy Pros when I need to do an actual calculation because I need to know the average fantasy points, not just the utilization. But utilization is good, particularly when you have to do a raw projection of fantasy points. So I definitely do appreciate that. Thanks, guys. Always appreciate a suggestion for how to punch up the video or anything. Yeah, or punch up the Discord if we need a new channel or something. Just let me know. But yeah, things are going well. I'll mention it again in the NBA video, but we did have a guy win $7,000 the night Greg won the NBA a couple nights ago. And I didn't make a Sunday video, so we didn't hear about it. But we had the guy who was 6th or 7th in that particular day, and it was on a pivot that I had told him directly to make like 20 minutes before lock. So I like it when it works like that. because there was no reason to still be on Kobe White with what's his name, Levine in that night. So that was an easy one for me to feel good about. Slash everybody to feel good about. Make sure you make the right plays in basketball. But that just goes to show I'm on to the basketball video in my mind. I don't really have any other strong stands. Play the best plays tonight. There's no tricks. I don't see any tricks at all. Play the best plays. You allow the defenses to be in the pool. I'm gonna have 20% Lions D, 10% Raiders D. We got punt plays that are playable. I'll mention them. Brock Wright is playable. I have him in 15%. I probably don't get to 35% Trey Tucker. Yeah, let me limit that to 15%. He's darts. I mean, it could happen. I like 15% for backup wide receivers. You saw it happen last night with somebody crazy who was super not expected to play, including by me, but I've had to update my process. That was a mistake. Wide receivers get hurt. They get hurt for long times. They get hurt for short times. So wide receiver fours are under-owned. That's always going to be true, particularly on a team that has a settled rotation in the wide receiver four, not expected to see the field like, what's his name? The guy who scored yesterday. Semi Fahico, I don't remember his last name, but Semi, when he scored, that's somebody who's 0.05% owned who should have been 5 to 15% just because of the odds of injury to a wide receiver, right? So that's a place where I think we can sprinkle. If you're a 150 maxer, this is where you have your advantage is WR4s and stuff like that, because you can play a sprinkle. You can play like 5 or 10 Semi Fahocos, and that's definitely right in 150 lineups to play whoever the equivalent wide receiver 4 is. I think I was just talking about him here, Trey Tucker. Yeah, or the guy, maybe wide receiver 3 on this team, I think. Whoever it is, the guy who's the first wide receiver not expected to see the field is going to give you that kind of leverage in the case of an injury. Huge leverage, massive leverage. The kind of leverage that you even have to consider in the captain spot. I left a possibility of a Trey Tucker captain spot and a Brock Wright captain spot just because, I mean, Brock Wright, he just hasn't caught a good pass all year. Like I was looking at this just right before lock. These are the tight ends for Detroit. And we're talking, he's running routes on 28% of plays and has only had a target on 3%. And you look at Laporta, obviously Laporta's better than him, but 77% routes, 20% targets. So long term, let's say we think Brock Wright is what? A third as good as Laporta. He's going to get 3 times the targets people are expecting. So just from his long-term usage. Obviously he's out there to block. I get that he's out there to block, but these are 2 tight end sets. So when he's out there not to block, he's out there in extremely valuable circumstances for us. So Brock Wright is 15% for sure for me. That's not going away. I love Brock Wright, Trey Tucker, all these guys who are like only going to get out there for, I mean, even Amir Abdullah, guys who are not expected to play at all are massively under-owned compared to where, like, what do you think the odds are that a running back gets an injury in a game, right? Much higher than 7%. And I mean, Abdullah's the backup running back anyway. He must be massively overpriced, like $5,000-$6,000. It's $200. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on there at all. Hey, what's up, bud? I love you too. I'm not able to help right now. Okay, bud. I'm glad you're having fun on the microphone. But yeah, let's look at, oh, wow. So Abdullah's getting 15% of snaps, running routes on 19% of snaps. So obviously he doesn't have many targets yet. Has 1% of the rush attempts. He's got nothing out there. 15% of snaps. The dude's out there every week. So like we're projecting, Amir Abdullah for 1.96 points, but definitely getting them. You know what I mean? Like he's out there every week. 15% of snaps is a lot of snaps for a guy who's mid-price. So who's mid-price and 7% owned in the flex. What's going on there? I mean, the chance that Amir Abdullah steps into a huge role for any number of reasons, game script, or I think I'm going to have to boost him now that I've seen. Obviously, he's not the preferred back, but let's have a look at what we got Craig Reynolds at 5. You know what I mean? And he's Craig Reynolds. He's not like smash play Craig Reynolds. So I think I'm going to make these guys the same play as backups because, I mean, let's check it out. Let me check out Craig Reynolds. I've imputed that I think Craig Reynolds is not out there very much. So let me make sure that's true with my usage and data. So in weeks where Jahmyr Gibbs and Craig Reynolds are the only guy, David Montgomery is the guy who's out. So week 7 is the only week we have. So that's actually, so this is the one place where we can't really project very well. Because we only have week 7, and in week 7, 10% of snaps for Craig Reynolds. Are you guys kidding me with this? So Craig Reynolds has 10% of snaps. We're projecting him for 5 points. And Abdullah's out there 15% of snaps, and we're projecting him for 1.5. So, hey, I'm glad I did the video long enough to make sure that I have one stand for you, which is Amir Abdullah, the better play than Craig Reynolds. To the point, I mean, like, I'll have it be slight on the actual numbers just because also don't break the slate with Abdullah. I do like it better than I was thinking, though. So I'll say 25%. He's the one place where I see somebody being clearly under projected for their actual going to be out there percent. Like, obviously, whether or not he scores any points at all remains to be seen. But that's where I'm pretty confident we have a little bit of edge for the slate is with Abdullah. I think I left him as a captain. If not, I'm going to have him in the next round of captain consideration as well. That is just an absolute absurd. Yeah, I did have him already in consideration. And when you get a cheap captain like Abdullah and Brock Wright, Trey Tucker, to have reasonable lineups in your pool for them, you need to let there be a lower min salary. But then you might need to make two pools, one just for the cheap captains and one for the good captains, because those are two different price ranges. So I think that's probably the way to go if you're considering a cheap captain, because if you do the big price range, it's just too much for the machine to pick out the right choices. It thinks you want to be way more riskier than you are. You're trying to leave that low price range so you get to good lineups with cheap captains, right? But it thinks, let's just look at the whole range of lineups, or I'm not sure exactly how it's sampling from the range. So I would probably recommend, if you go to a cheap captain, I'm going to start doing this too, build those in a separate build, like, have cheap captain build or something like up here, name it cheap captain build, and have one be regular build and whatever. And just so you have so that you're comparing like apples and apples. You know what I mean? I think SaberSim has a little bit of trouble sampling apple and orange space together, if that makes sense. All right, well, I'm going out into weird like criticisms that I don't have a solid criticism. So I'll stop the Monday Night Football game video here, try to do that basketball video really quick. And remember, you're good enough, you're strong enough, and somebody's got to win $500,000 tonight. Might as well be yes.